I find myself often asking, how do I tell if I'm an adult? I've met older people that are immature and act like they're still in high school, so what does it take to be an adult? The best I could come up with is not dying before you turn 18. So I have a hard time identifying as an adult, especially since I still feel like a kid. That being said, I want to talk with other, quote, adults and learn from them. After all, the quickest and typically the most painless way to learn is through others. Somehow, we're adults. All right, so you're doing more social media stuff, like piggyback on what we were just talking about. We're talking about social media and advertising on there.
Yeah, I got off Facebook about a year ago now because I could not deal with it anymore. And
I don't blame you one bit.
And I realized pretty immediately that my mental health got so much better. And I've never been like a depressed or anxiety-ridden type of person anyway, but that constant negativity was just getting to me. So I started spending more time on Instagram because on Instagram I just follow pretty things like art, fashion, like the kinds of
what you're interested in.
Like I've really gotten into macro photography of insects. Like I'm
glad that there's the group of people that like that.
Yeah, I'm not a bug person at all, but like when you get so close to them, you can see like the individual cells in their eyeballs. That's
pretty cool.
Pretty fascinating. So
that is pretty cool. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, so I am, and actually this kind of relates to one of the paintings I brought. I have been a huge arachnophobe since I was like 4 or 5 years old. Like, a spider gets anywhere near me, I'm like bursting into tears. It's just not a pretty thing. And these macro photographs of spiders have actually kind of helped with my fear. So now I'm at the point where like, I don't want one on me. But if I see it, I'm not going to like completely freak out. And especially because I was trying to share this with one of our coworkers the other day who is also scared of spiders. And I keep talking about there's a certain type of spider that is just adorable. Like have
you seen, what's the YouTube? Oh man. My fiance told me about it. There's like a YouTube channel where someone makes like, it's like some kind of like talking spider.
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
But it's like, it's for kids.
Okay.
And they put like a spider, like they gave the spider a voice, and it's like a little kid.
Okay.
So it makes spiders seem cute. See if you can find that, Colton. But okay, continue what you're saying.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So I think they're called peacock spiders or something like that, and they're super teeny and they're fuzzy and they've got these four giant green eyes. And their butts are like multicolored, and they'll like shove them up in the air and dance around to like scare you or whatever. I don't know if it's a mating thing or a scaring thing. Anyway, so just like combining all that stuff has made me less terrified of spiders. So let me show you the piece.
Okay.
Since we're kind of on that subject.
Colton, I think it's the Lucas the spider. I think it's Lucas. Try searching for Lucas the spider.
Okay, so.
Shout out Christy.
Yes, I knew you would recognize the person.
She was on the podcast. We didn't have video for that one, but that's that's Christy. That was super awesome, by the way. That is super awesome.
Yeah, I listened to that episode because I was like, oh, I know her.
Oh, she loves you. She speaks so highly of you. Shout out Christy.
So I know that Christy is also terrified of spiders, and she posted this photo on Instagram, I don't know, a year or so ago, and I was like, I have to do something with this photo because it's fantastic. And it all came together a few months ago, and I was like, all right, so she is
cool.
I didn't use her name on the piece because I was trying to find something symbolic. So this is actually Saint Charlotte of the Recovering Arachnophobes.
That's the name of it?
That's the name of the piece. Cool. Because Charlotte from Charlotte's Web. But so I kind of
leave it propped up over there. Why not we'll go through it. I don't know if people can see down there or not. Okay, so in between that's Lucas the spider.
Oh yeah, I've seen pictures of that. Yeah,
like millions of views on YouTube.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty adorable.
It is adorable.
Like when I saw that, I was like, Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they made it into something. I guess I'm not sure if their whole purpose was to do that, but I guess it's like an educational purpose for kids and stuff. But that was a pretty big thing. And I'm terrified of spiders, and that's what I
was gonna say is like these peacock spiders are like. If Disney Pixar was making a spider character, they would make a peacock spider because they're just that cute. So it's kind of like that.
Try peacock spider. I'm curious what that looks like.
But But no, so that's
Google's
actually,
listening to us talk at new. If all he typed in was PE and it pulled it up.
see how cute they are.
That is pretty cool.
little dances.
That's almost like some kind of like mating dance.
And see how small they are too. Look at the ones
They're
on
tiny.
the pencils. They're like
I love that. They're like the colors on their abdomen or thorax, whatever. I don't even know nothing about insects, but whatever that color is, that's super cool. That red and make them look bigger, I guess.
Mask almost.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah.
really like some kind of like Indian themed mask. That's really cool.
yeah, right.
Yeah, that is super cool. Is
Yeah.
it blue and red too? Huh.
And this is never knew about this until Instagram suddenly started feeding. I started liking macro photos of insects, then these spiders start popping up, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, Instagram's weird. We were talking about that yesterday. The guy who did the podcast yesterday, he runs social media accounts for
Okay.
like small businesses and stuff, and he also has a fantasy football social media. And we talked about like algorithms and stuff. And like one of the things I've noticed is, you know, your algorithm can either like add value to your life or like take you away from your life and get you fired up about something. It's just like the
Right.
news.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
You could be completely filled with like like current events and stuff like that, or you can have like I try to have like a lot of motivational
Right,
people online
right.
and stuff like that to get me to work out more, and people that I think are working out way harder than I do, you know. So it gets me motivated. Gets me motivated.
So my fiance and I are also work out in the mornings. Like 5 a.m. we get up and we work out before the day starts because we're just weird like that.
You guys are weird multiple ways from what I've heard. Colton wakes up early and does it too. I found I was less consistent when I did that.
See, we're more consistent because if I wait until the end of the day, then there will be something else that'll come up that I'd rather do, like go have cocktails with my friends or something
Yeah,
like that.
right.
But if I do it first thing, there's no excuse.
Right.
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 But anyway, so the point of that is we've been putting on like YouTube mixes to listen to while we're weightlifting, and I've found that like a lot of the photos on the workout mixes tend to be of The Rock. I wonder why.
Yeah, he's pretty intense. He's pretty intense. I mean, like he's motivating. I mean, how many followers? He's like 160 something million followers. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can go to the Rock's page and get motivation anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like that's part of the reason. You ever heard of David Goggins?
No.
David Goggins is just a savage, and Jocko is the same thing. They're both Jocko's like a Navy SEAL captain or something like that. He was higher ranking in the Navy SEALs, and then David Goggins was a Navy SEAL as well. And they're both authors, but they have like you can watch their videos. I send them to Christy a lot.
Okay.
I'll send them to Christy because she likes them. Like one of the things Christy's asked me before, like she's like, okay, how do you like not eat donuts when there's donuts offered to you? And I'm like, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's for sure. And I was like, but I impose discipline. And she's like, where did you hear that from? Like the impose discipline. And I was like, I heard it from Jocko. So she
Okay.
made a sticky note and kept it on her desk that said, impose discipline. And then the quote was by somebody that Ryan knows. I saw that on YouTube, or like some guy Ryan follows or something.
Right.
It was hilarious.
So that's like kind of is another thing, like the concept of discipline versus motivation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you think about it in terms of working out, but it also applies to art. So I'm going to circle back to
Yeah,
art
for
for
sure.
a second here.
All art. Yeah, I would completely agree.
So one of my favorite quotes, because I know I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, you like quotes.
I do.
Chuck Close is a famous 20th century artist. He was one of the founders of the hyperrealism, photorealism movement, right? And I keep a quote of his on my desk at work, and I keep it in my mind all the time. And it says, "Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just get up and go to work." And when you think about that concept of dedication versus motivation, like with working out, with doing art, with starting a new business, with anything, you can't always wait for yourself to be motivated to do that thing or inspired to do that thing.
For sure.
You just have to get up and be like, this is what I'm doing. And
Whether you want to or not.
whether you want to or not. So there's the morning workouts for me is like, I'm going to get up and do this thing. I'm still tired, but I'm going to get moving, you know?
Yeah.
And with my art, some days, especially weekends, because, you know, when you're working a 9 to 5, that's the only time you have to do anything else.
Right, the weekends.
Is like, all right, well, I don't really feel like doing art today, but I'm going to go over to my studio and just mess around for a little while and see what happens. The next thing I know, like 8 hours has passed and I've got half a piece done. You know?
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes is an Abraham Lincoln quote. And it's going to be, so like people can't see it, but there's 4 boards. One of them has a quote on it, and they're like projects, and I have like 1,000 projects started, none of them finished. But so one of the quotes is going to be an Abraham Lincoln quote, and it's discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now, or something. I might have butchered it slightly, but essentially that's what I look at it as. Or you've ever heard? I think it was Zig Ziglar said that motivation is like bathing. Like if it's not something you do once and you're done, you should do it daily. You should find motivation daily. Mm-hmm. So that's why I try to fill my Instagram, because if Instagram's something I do daily, then I need to make sure that it's inspiring me to do something like working out or something like that. Right.
No, I get that. That's why mine is all like art.
Yeah. Well, have you ever read the book The War of Art?
No.
It's a really good book. Stephen Pressfield book, but it's actually really, really short book. But basically, the gist of the book is talking about how art is more discipline than it is actually creativity. And it almost talks about like creativity as like if it's a muscle, and if you don't exercise it, then like it's not going to be a strong muscle. Right. So, if you're constantly disciplining yourself, like if I do this podcast, I've done this will be episode 30? Yeah, episode 30. So now 30 of them, and if I didn't discipline myself to continue doing it, like I love doing this, but it's like to get to the point, like it's not all the time that I love every part of doing the podcast, like the computer side, and like we're learning like new technology to edit the podcast, and adding it to YouTube, and like got to research equipment and stuff like that. None of that stuff's fun to me, but it adds value to the thing that is the fun thing to me. So it seems like it's not work. Right. So
no, I get it completely.
Discipline is for sure, like it's a difficult thing to do, because like when you were talking earlier, I was like, well, man, if I only worked out when I felt like it, I would work out like once every like 3 months. Correct. Yeah. It's just something. It's like brushing your teeth. Like you don't want to brush your teeth, but you brush your teeth anyways. Yeah, exactly. And I view working out like brushing my teeth. Like it's like, okay, I have these things I have to do. There's not a if there's time, if I feel like doing it. It's just things I have to do. Yep. Disciplining myself to do it. I never want to run before I go for a run. Never. Gosh. And it's just so hard to, like, it's hard to get started.
It is. But it's like, once you get started, like, there have been a couple times in the last couple weeks, because we're on the Alex Keaton workout plan. That's my fiance.
Alex Keaton?
Yes.
Oh, that's your husband? Okay. I was like, I've never heard of this person. Okay.
So we do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is lifting weights, and Tuesday, Thursday is cardio. And I'm a runner, so that's what I do. And there are some mornings I wake up and I'm just like, I do not want to do this. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to just put my shoes on and go outside. And I'm like, you just have to walk. Just take a walk. And by the time like I get through my 5-minute warm up, it's like, all right, time to start the intervals. Let's go.
Yeah. But when you're sitting down and you're like, just sitting on the couch or like laying in bed or something like that, you're like, do I really want to get up and run? This is what I'm doing now is what I want to do. Yes. But it's just, body in motion stays in motion. Once you start walking, you're like, okay, I can do this. Yep. I can do this. Yep. So we do a similar kind of thing. We do like a push pull and then like a legs workout typically. And then we try to do 2 days of cardio. But it's hard for me on the weekends too, because I still want to work out. So I end up still working out some way or another. Right. But
I'm not quite there yet. My weekends are all about like doing my artwork or cleaning the house.
Yeah. Well, I love playing basketball.
Okay.
So like I'll just like find a reason, like go meet up and play basketball, or like there'll be workouts that, because I follow Athlean X's workout program. I don't know if you've heard of him. If, like a huge YouTuber, if you want to pull him up, Colton. But I follow his workout program, and like sometimes like I like doing deadlifts, and like I like doing the traditional workouts, and sometimes he might not have that built into the program, and there's him. He's shredded. Okay. He's like in his late 40s, early 50s. Right. Okay. And he's been like that for like 15 years. Oh wow. The man has he's ridiculously strong. And he talks about like the science of everything. He explains not just what to do, but why to do it. And there's a lot of exercises that people do on a regular basis that you wouldn't realize how terrible for your joints. Because that's one of the things he talks about is he wants to like make sure that everyone can do what they're doing for a long period of time and not blow out their shoulder or something like that. So he used to train like he was like a physical what was it, CPT, personal trainer, but for like the New York Mets and like several other like baseball teams, and like he does now, he's basically just doing YouTube and celebrities, and does training with celebrities and stuff. But like on Saturdays, like I'll be like, okay, I want to go hit a deadlift, and like Colton and me will go work out, or another buddy of mine will go work out, and I don't know. I love it. And it doesn't take much time. And I feel like I'm less rushed when it's through the weekdays and I have work and dinner and stuff like that. I typically go after work.
Right.
Or the new plan that we're going to be doing is get home, eat dinner, and then go to the gym. So it's
that I used to take dance class for like 10 years as an adult. I took dance class and I love modern dance, and they only offer the classes at like 7 p.m. And I learned very quickly that I just can't do that, because if I start a workout at 7, that means you're not done until 8. And the next thing you know, you're like so wound up, you can't go to bed until like 11. And then you've got to be up at 5 the next morning. No, I just can't.
Yeah, I get that.
I just can't.
Yeah, well, my thing is we were working out right after. So I typically have the most energy at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So that stinks because I'm at work. So, but with the sleep schedule I have, that's when I have the most energy, 8, 9, 10. And that's why I try and do the podcast then. But but like I'll get off work and I'll go work out, and then I'll get home and I'll eat, and then I'll eat, and the next thing I do is go to bed.
Right.
Or like get ready and go to bed, and it's just it doesn't give your body a good enough time to digest the food that you just eaten, and then you have to go to bed with a full stomach, and that's terrible for your sleep. And I try and track my sleep because it's really important as well. So make sure I have good sleep.
Sorry, I needed a little water.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's like that from Mad Max Fury Road when he's like, "Do not become addicted to water because you will regret its absence," or something.
Emily tried to make an argument when she was on the podcast. She said that if she ever because she's how she's like crazy into murder, and she was like talking, she's like, well, if I ever get abducted and they're not giving me water, I'll be okay.
I heard that.
Yeah. And when she said that, I was like maybe you won't be, because you'll start dehydrated.
Right.
At least I'll be hydrated if I got abducted. I'd be good. I don't think I'm as reliant upon it. I just stay hydrated. I don't know.
She cracks me up.
She was so funny it was so funny when she was like when I showed her, like, I have my half gallon out all the time. Colton's got his, and when she said that, she's like, there's not like a shortage.
Right.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you for your infinite wisdom.
So okay, going back to the art a little bit, the Saints series is one that I have going on right now that I'm really having fun with. I didn't realize I was doing this series of Saints until I started preparing for this one-person show I just did at the Mulberry Cultural Center. And I was like, man, I've got like this series of these people with these halos, mostly women. And I decided, I was like, this is fun. Why don't I do saints of like weird stuff? So again, they're recovering arachnophobes. I've got one who's the saint of emerging technology or something like that, so like having fun with that. But then the other thing I started noticing was I also have this weird series of goddesses going. So I brought one of them. The other
that is, it almost looks like a picture,
right?
Like it doesn't look like a painting.
That's cool. Well, thank you. That's good. So
like the definition, it's like insane. Like it literally looks like it comes off of the canvas. That is so cool.
Thank you.
Hey guys, there was a momentary pause in the conversation, and when we started to record again, the subject of the conversation had changed, so just trying to call attention to it so you aren't caught off guard. And like my family, so like, it's an old school thing to like, before you get married, you have to, like, you can't live with the person, you have to wait until you're married, and then you can live with that person. And I'm like, but I don't know if I was taught to question everything, but I just grew up and I did question everything. Right. I've always been a curious person. That's probably why I'm so interested in doing a podcast where I talk to people. But so like I kind of grew up with that same kind of thing where like, okay, my parents got divorced and they waited till they were married to live together, and the divorce rate of that generation is so high. And if they all did that, then why am I taking their advice? Right. You know what I mean? Like taking advice from homeless people on how to buy a house. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like that's not, you don't have good credibility there. So, I was able to question things. But, when I told my grandmother that, my current fiance, when we were going to be living together, it was like they were like wide eyes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, okay. But they weren't like mad about it, but you could definitely see they were just like, well, we wish you would do something different. If they could convince me to do something different, they would have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I kind of got the same thing from my parents when my fiance and I moved in together, because we were both like, they're very good reasons why we're not married yet 8 years later.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with him going to school and needing financial aid.
Right.
And so when we first moved in together, they had a real hard time with that whole, but you're not married. But after a couple of years and us like repeatedly explaining, this is what's going on, and this is why. And then getting to know him better. Now they're like, oh, it's just Alex, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. My fiance's family is very religious as well. And to them, she has 4 older brothers, and we talked to her 4 older brothers. And, we basically got like berated by each one of them on like, minus like 1 or 2 of them, but a couple of them, they basically just like told us like, hey, this is you shouldn't do that,
right?
This is why, and God would want this, or da da da. And I'm just like, okay, and I just respectfully just sat there and let water off a duck's back kind of thing. So, but
and actually, I think about that. So here's another perspective I think about that from is I've been reading a lot of classic literature lately, because I feel like I missed a lot in high school just from not having that. The maturity to understand what was going on, right?
Or you just weren't interested in it, maybe?
Or a little of both, probably.
Maybe who was presenting the information wasn't interesting in how they did it.
So I'm going back. I've been reading Jane Austen. I recently listened to David Copperfield, which is a fantastic book. But the thing that's common about the books from that kind of Victorian and pre-Victorian era is that whole notion of romantic love started coming out, right? And so everybody's like, oh, I'm falling in love, I'm finding my soulmate, right? But they get married because they're in lust, right? Like if you look at it from a 21st century
they're in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah,
right.
They're getting married because they're in lust. And so then you realize that the reason there's so many unhappy marriages in these books, like the older marriages in these books from the parents or whatever, are usually unhappy. And it's like, I wonder why.
Exactly. That's something I saw. It's like, okay, like my thoughts. Obviously, this is just my thoughts, and not everybody agrees with me, but I'm going to tell them anyways. But like...
Well, that's what we're here for.
Exactly. So my thoughts are like, okay, if you're the traditional way of doing it, right, is to wait until they teach you in school abstinence, and so you're taught in school abstinence, and you start dating someone, you normal feelings for that person, you're like, they can do no wrong. Oh, we'll never get in fights, we'll never argue.
Right.
You're in that honeymoon phase where that person can do no wrong, and then if you're waiting till marriage, all of a sudden you have more of an incentive to want to get married sooner, and then you don't really know the person yet, and you get married to them, and now you're legally bound by the government to that person financially, and like it's just not, to me, it's not a good setup if you do it too soon. And I feel like so many people get married too soon before you even realize who that other person is, because they can do no wrong in your mind, and they're the perfect person. And then once you it's like test driving a car. Right. You should be looking for the things you don't like about it, because if you test drive a car, you don't find the negatives on it, then you just, I feel like that's what it's like. And I don't know. It didn't seem, Danielle and I have been together for over 5 years now, so like I'm pretty sure we're past the honeymoon stage.
Exactly. That's kind of how I feel about it. That's like at this point, Alex and I know all of each other's crazy, and we're fine. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't feel to me, marriage is not, like, if you're not getting married for religious reasons, then it's not as big of a deal as so many people make it out to be. Because reality is, like, do you support each other? Like, if you live together, like do you have each other's backs?
Right.
Like,
are you good partners?
Right. Can you go through difficult things and still come out on the other side together? Yep. And, and that's really all it's about to me. You don't have to have the government involved to know that for sure. Nope. So, yeah. So how long have you guys been engaged for?
3 or 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You guys dated for 5 or 6 years before that too?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Daniela was getting antsy. She's like, when is this ring coming?
Right. Right.
She's like, come on, we've been doing this for a while.
The funny thing, the funny/sweet thing about this whole thing is when Alex and I first met, he was like, I'm never getting married. There's no point in getting married. Like
typical
he was
guy
very,
thing.
Yeah. And then 3 or 4 years into the relationship, he's like, I want you to marry me. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I have friends that have been dating for, I don't know, I think 8 or 9 years, and they're like, they're not even. I don't even know when they're going to get married. I don't know
Right.
if they're going to. I don't even think they're not even engaged. But they live together, and
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I mean, the one thing he and I definitely agree on is that I am not taking his name. Like,
What?
I'm not. No. I did that with my first husband. It's a pain in the rear to change your name one time, let alone the second time after the divorce. So I'm like, nope. I am now Meredith Pope. This is it.
This is it.
This
See,
is it.
this is you're gonna laugh. My last name is so weird that it has to keep going, and me and my brother are the only ones that can keep it going.
Right.
So, so hopefully one day when me and my brother have kids, we'll have boys. I just hoping they're boys so
Right.
that they can continue to pass it down because this last name cannot die with
Oh
us.
yeah, no, my that's another disappointment from my dad is that of his 3 children, only one wants kids, and that's my sister. And
Yeah.
she has provided him with 2 grandsons, and neither of them have his name.
Oh,
So yeah,
you
And
know,
my brother and I are very much like, no, sorry, this is not happening.
yeah. What? So what was your thought process for not wanting kids?
This straight up, I have told my whole family this. My brother was the best birth control my parents could have ever given me.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I agree. There's a
and-
lot of kids that can easily be. Yeah. Make you not want to have kids.
So here I was 8 when he was born, almost 8, like a month from being 8. And so here's 8-year-old me, and suddenly there's this baby around. So I was like seeing like dirt. My mom used cloth diapers because they couldn't afford disposable diapers in the early 80s.
Listen, I prefer obviously I don't wear diapers, but
Right.
like I would prefer less trash.
Right,
Exactly,
right. So I saw that whole process, and then as he got older, my brother is severely ADHD. And so we learned this in the mid 80s when no one knew what ADHD was. So I saw my mom having to fight with the school system, having to fight with my brother because he was just such an angry child most of the time from being frustrated and not being able to like work out, whatever was going on in his head. So I saw all of this as an 8, 10, 12-year-old growing up. And then from my brother's perspective, living that, he's like, why would I want to bring a child into the world who's going to likely have to have these same experiences I had,
Yeah.
And so for the two of us, it's very much just like, no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My thought is I've always wanted to be, like I had good parents growing up and I learned that not every human's perfect. Obviously there's good parts and bad parts to that. And I'm like, everything that I've learned and all the experiences I've gone through, I'd like to, have kids one day and hopefully be better at it than my parents were at. I mean, that's the idea, is to be better than how your parents done it. So, I think it'd be fun to have like little humans that I've created, what I mean? Like that's part of me.
Yeah. I mean, I got to a point in my probably late 20s, early 30s when I was still married to my ex-husband where it was like, okay, if I get pregnant, it's not the end of the world. Like, This is fine. But it never happened. And because of the way that marriage ended, I'm kind of grateful it never happened. And here, now that I'm like at the end of my childbearing age, I'm like, there's no point.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Don't blame you one bit.
I don't want to be 65 sending someone through college.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird because like that's the thing that I'm running into like at this age, because it seems like it's in the water right now, is like everyone's either getting married or having kids and or doing both. But we're just doing the married thing. We're not trying to have kids anytime soon, but it's like, okay, when's the right time? Because like there's never going to be the most perfect time, but there's people who had kids like 4 years ago and like they're young and that like in their early 20s, late teens, and that's kind of cool because you'll be not even 50 and your kids will be grown. You know what I mean? That's kind of cool because then you can have more family, I guess. But then it's like if you wait too late. My parents were in their early to mid 30s when they had me and my brother, and so like my family is all like, I'm the youngest one in my family and all my family is much older.
Okay.
So like my brother, granted my brother's, I only have one brother and he's 3 years older than me, but like all my cousins, all my uncles and aunts, and they're all much older than me. So like it's just weird. It's just weird.
Yeah. And my sister, she did it kind of a different way too. So she had my first nephew when she was in her 20s. He's now 20. But then the second nephew came along 10 years later. So
Oh man, yeah, yeah. And see, I think there's value in having siblings that are closer in age,
right.
Because like me and my brother, I love my brother to death, and if he's listening to this, I love you, Robbie. But we fought like crazy when we
Right.
were kids. Like we would have never have thought 10 years ago that we would be friends, and now we're great friends. But
Right.
but man, we fought like crazy. But I feel like there's value out of that. You learn sharing, you learn patience, you learn a lot of things from that.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, because my sister and I were the same way. We're 2 years apart. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
growing up.
Yeah. But you guys are probably friends now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and but then the nice thing about my brother being so much further behind is that I was kind of like the built-in babysitter in some ways, but he's also like one of my best friends. Like
Yeah.
my brother and I, if you were to see us sitting next to each other, we're like the male and female version of each other. And, yeah.
That's awesome. I actually have mistaken, like, when I was like more overweight, I was like me and Robbie look nothing alike. But now that I've lost more weight and I'm closer in weight to him now, like there was one time I was a video that I pulled up on my phone and I was like, oh, Robbie, here's you shooting. He's like, that's not me. And I was like, oh, that's me. People have sent me like pictures of my brother and they're like, oh, why are you doing that there? I'm like, that's my brother.
Right.
Like granted we both have like the same haircut, the same beard, like we wear like the same kind of clothes. Like we ended up so much similar. It's distasteful. I'm just kidding. I love you, Robbie. But,
That's funny.
yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things, like figuring out when you want to have kids too, because there's just so many things. I think it's just one of those things you have to get as much of it in place as you can, so that because it's never going to all.
No,
be in
it's
place.
not. Someone once said to either to me or near me that you're never going to have enough money to have kids. Like,
Right.
so don't wait until you think you're financially ready because it's
Right.
not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, and kids are. It's just like everything in the world. You can spend as much money or as little money on anything that you want. Mm-hmm. You don't have to start a podcast. You don't need $100,000.
Right.
You can start recording it on something different. Like,
Right.
You can start with very, very little start off. But it's the same thing like with buying a car. You could buy a used car, or you could buy a brand new Cadillac.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just same thing with kids. You don't have to get them everything in the world. I listened to obviously a lot of podcasts, and one of the ones I was listening to, the guy was talking. He's like, one of the best things that you can do for your kid, and that most parents don't, is just spending time with the kid.
Right.
Just giving them your full attention. Don't like kick a soccer ball to the kid and be on your phone. Like give them your attention. That's
Right.
all they want.
And I think that's also a generational thing, because my generation didn't grow up with parents who had devices, right? Like, sure, my dad would come home from work and watch Star Trek as soon as he got home. Like, but
Jeez, I wonder why she's such a nerd. No, I'm just kidding.
like, I clearly remember watching Star Trek when I was 4. Buck Rogers, all those things. But at the same time, it was kind of like time with my dad, because we could share this thing. It wasn't like he was sitting there, watching Star Trek on his phone while
It's a
I was
bonding.
watching something
you want
else.
something to
Yeah.
bond with your parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and same thing with my mom. Like, she's probably the reason I write as well as I do, because
Right.
she was like, here, read this. Here, we're going to read this book now.
Yeah. Well, my dad is probably where I get my like talkative nature, like my I don't know about curiosity or not, but like just like how much him and I would just like I'd watch him talk to other people, and he would like chat people's ears off, and I'm
Right.
the same way, and just loving having conversation. And he's like my uncle. I think my uncle, because my dad's an identical twin.
Okay.
So my uncle, he's kind of the same way. Like he's a talkative person. He's been on the podcast before. I'm gonna get him on the podcast again soon. But and there's like I always used to get in trouble in school for talking too much.
Right.
And so like I was like, okay, what this is clearly a strength of mine, or potentially a weakness depending on
Right.
where I use it.
Yeah.
So, and that was like, okay, well the podcast that's the thing, is I'm talking to people. So
Yeah.
let's double down on what I'm
So
enjoy doing.
how do you feel about public speaking? Like standing up on a stage in front of people?
Terrifying.
Really?
Yeah. Terrifying. Like if everyone who listened to the podcast was like sitting in a crowd right there, it would be completely different conversation.
Interesting.
I am a much better small group speaker.
Okay.
Like Colton's just sitting there listening, and then you and I, and then it's being recorded.
Okay.
That's my realm. That is my realm. I took public speaking classes in college, and talking in front of a class, terrible. I get super nervous, hands start sweating, can't think of nothing.
Here's how I got over it. And it was probably around high school. I realized that I have such a loud damn voice that, like, even if I was having a private conversation with my friend at the seat next to me, the whole class heard it.
Yeah. Yep.
And when I realized that, I was like, well, what's the difference in me having this conversation the whole class is hearing, or me standing in front of the class and talking to them about whatever this is? And that was it. Like, you put me in front of a crowd. Okay, you want to talk about embarrassing situations? I did a solo dance performance at the age of 42, and flubbed it, right? And I also, one year before that, because I was on the board of this particular organization, I stood there in my dance recital costume at the Polk Theater in front of a crowd of like 1,200 parents and family members, asking them to support Florida Dance Theater as the board member / student you're about to see dance.
My hands are sweating just from you talking about doing all that.
No,
that's not my crowd. Like, even in meetings, like if I'm in a meeting with somebody, or not somebody, but like in a meeting with like a group of people, like the likelihood that I'm going to speak up is very small. You have to be like directly talking to me.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I am a much more conversationalist than I am a group conversationalist. Like person to person, I'll talk to anybody. He will tell you that I can talk to anybody, and I can talk to anybody for any length amount of time. I mean, like, I don't know what it is. It's just how I am. But if you put me like to a group of people, it's much more difficult.
You're gonna clam up.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like I can. I think my thing is I think there's just too many subjects at that point. And, I don't know how, if I'm in front of a group, I don't know how certain people are going to react to what I'm saying. And it's much easier to judge what I'm saying and how that person's perceiving it when I'm dealing with one person. So,
I gotcha.
Maybe it's just like a thing of like, I really don't know. I couldn't even put a thing on. I haven't thought too much about why I'm not a big public speaker. I get nervous. I mean, I think it's one of those things, if I did it more, I'd probably be good at it. But this is my form of public speaking. Right. Look at it as you want, if you don't want to, kind of thing. So.
Right. And some people just never get good at it. Like, even if they want to do it, they're just not great speakers. You know, and I'm not sure that I was a great speaker. I was just willing.
Yeah. You just had the balls to do it. Yeah. Yeah. It's like one of the things I was thinking, like, while you were telling me, is like if you ever wanted to do a podcast, you could do some kind of thing. Like, have you ever heard of Murder and Makeup?
Yeah, Emily told me about that one.
Yeah, Emily, that's how I learned about it. Yeah, and like I didn't realize how big of a thing it was, but like she just does her makeup, and I'm like it'd be cool if you could do some kind of like painting thing and talk about something at the same time.
Like random stuff.
Yeah, if you wanted to,
that's
like whatever,
true.
pick a subject matter you wanted to talk about.
Lord knows I will read anything you put in front of me.
Yeah. See, and that was the thing I struggled with at school, was reading. Like reading was not like I struggled with reading the actual words. Like I could read it. It was just retaining and paying attention to what, like my focus with reading was, that was the one, my biggest struggle in school was reading. But it was because you'd give me something that I'm not interested in. Yeah. And expect me to retain what it was enough to answer questions where it's like, okay, out of these answers, pick the one that is the most correct. Right. The most correct?
Yeah.
What's correct to me is this one, because when I read it, that was the only part that stood out to me because I couldn't pay attention to it. But math was...
Right.
I was so good with math. Like 2 + 2 is always going to be 4.
Well, and I think that's the key is the interest levels. Like I say, I'll read anything that you put in front of me, but I'm not going to remember it if it didn't interest me.
Right. Oh, yeah. There's been times I'll read a book and I'll get like 3 or 4 pages back and I'm like, I've been zoned out this entire time.
Yes.
Yep.
I've even gotten to the point, because reading is such a hobby of mine, that if I get into a book and I'm like, do I care how this ends? And the answer is no, I stop reading it.
That's a good thought. I've never thought of that before, because there's a book I'm on right now and I'm like having to choke it down.
Stop reading it.
Yeah.
There are better books out there.
Yeah. Something that because this book has been like, I think I've had it for like 6 or 7 months. Yeah. I noticed that I do have an interest in reading, and when it's something I'm interested in, like a subject matter that I'm interested in, I had no problem listening to it. It started when I was in college. I was flying to Boston. That might have been the first time I flew there. And I was going on the flight, and I'm like, okay, well, I need something to do if I can't. I think it was the first time I ever flown. And And I was like, I need something to do while I'm in the air. And I asked my business professor at that time. She was a business communications professor. I said, what book would you recommend? Because I was so interested in business and in that class that I figured she would give me some kind of good recommendation. And she was a super good teacher. She goes, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
You ever read that book?
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
Right. It's a super famous book. But I was like, okay. I went and bought it, and I didn't think nothing of it. I thought it was going to be like every other book I read.
Right.
The only thing that was... but I thought might be different was like the book Hatchet that we had to read in like elementary school or middle school or whatever it was. I read the book Hatchet and I was glued to that book. Like I loved that book. But then like the other books I read throughout school I had no interest in.
Right.
But in Hatchet, for some reason, I remembered everything. I could still tell you like the premise of it today, and it was 15 years ago.
Right.
But and so I was like, I got the book, and my intentions were very low, but I started reading it. And I was so into it. I finished that book in like less than 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
I was reading it at the gym on a stair stepper. like talk about nerd.
Right.
I'm like sitting there on a stair stepper, got like my elbows on the thing, and I'm just like, and the craziest part was while I was doing that, my fiance's brother was on the stair stepper next to me. I had no idea he was even there. He said he saw me at the gym, and I'm like, saw me at the gym? Why didn't you say something? He's like, I was next to you, and I was like, oh. He's like, you were reading a book, and I was like, oh, I was really into it, and I was on the stair stepper for like an hour that day.
That's funny.
Yeah, I would do too much cardio, but yeah, and so then I was like, okay, this seems to be where I'm the most interested in is when it comes to like I guess nonfiction kind of just thought books when it comes to like how to handle money and financial stuff like that.
Right.
And so I learned that like when it comes to money, I can pay attention to stuff like financial podcasts. Dave Ramsey's one of my favorite. I can sit there and pay attention to that for hours upon hours.
Right.
I don't know what it is. It's just what I like.
had the advantage. I've heard you talk about financial stuff on the other episodes I listened to, and I had the wonderful advantage that my ex-father-in-law was a stockbroker. So, I met my ex-husband when I was 17, almost 18. So when I started going around his family, like Sunday afternoon dinners usually involved conversations about financial management, financial planning, what the stock market was doing, things like that. Were you bored out of your
mind when you had that conversation?
No, interestingly. But it's because of him and what he taught my ex-husband about budgeting and money management that I have this like foundation and financial responsibility that a lot of people don't get in their 20s.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the best time to get it. Yeah. That's what makes me so upset with the school system is you don't learn, like the guy on the podcast yesterday, we were talking about compounding interest, and I showed him like a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA and how putting much money into it can make a huge difference over time. But you don't learn about that stuff until you're in your 50s most of the time.
That was actually like, again, going back to talking about Emily, since we both know her, I crawled her case for a good solid year about signing up for the 401k.
She makes fun of me anytime I talk to her about something that you've talked to her about, and she goes, okay, Meredith. Like, Emily, you need to drink water.
Right.
If she's listening to this, less caffeine. Put the coffee down.
Yes.
And there you have it. Yeah. She's insane with the coffee. There'll be like times when like I'll message her and it'll be like 5 o'clock and she'll be like, hey, I just want you to know I just drank 6 ounces of water for the first time today. I'm like,
Emily, oh my God.
Emily.
Yeah.
But same thing. Every time I've talked to her about like finances, she's like, okay, Dave Ramsey. And I'm like, listen, it's math. I'm good at this.
It's math. But yeah, so like when we have a lot of younger people in our department, and I'm always encouraging them to sign up. And what I give them as an example, and because I'm not scared to talk about money in general, but like when I left the museum in 2010, I had like 10 grand in my retirement fund from them. And that was really mostly because of their contributions, not so much because mine, because I was doing like, I was making so little, like $25 a month was my contribution, right?
Yeah.
So I left with that account with about 10 grand in it. I just got my quarterly statement a couple weeks ago, 70.
Yeah. Without touching it.
I've done nothing to that account in the last 11 years.
It's like, when I turned 18, I was able to start contributing to my 401k, and I started putting in, I think the max was 10%, and I just put that in, and I just blindly put it in.
Right.
And I was just like, whatever. I knew that time was on my hands, and that everyone around me was saying, just as soon as you can, do it. As much as you can, as soon as you can. That's what make the biggest difference.
Yep.
And I looked at like my retirements the other day, and I was like, if I never added money to it and just left it as with the normal interest rate that it would get, it like I mean, it would end up being, a substantial amount of money over time, within 30 years.
Right.
Because time is
huge.
Yeah, when it comes to
that's why I give them that specific example is like, if you just give this nebulous, if you put it in there and leave it alone, it'll grow. It's like, no, here's my personal experience.
Right.
Now, that's not going to be your personal experience, but you won't even have that experience if you don't try.
You don't listen to what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, I look at life in that same realm, though. Like, okay, the hardest part is starting, right? But like that, I've said it before. I don't know if you heard the quote, but like me talking about time machines. If everyone had a time machine, they'd go back in time and make one small change that would have huge impact on their future. So I think about that with many things in life. Okay, I see, like I said, a lot of my family's older. I look at how they live their lives,
right? And
I go, okay, what did they do? What health problems do they have? What financial issues do they have? And what can I do now while time is on my side?
Right.
So that way, when I am that age, I'd love to still be able to work out when I'm in my 70s.
Oh, yes.
And go for how cool would it be to run a marathon in your 70s?
Yeah. I want to be able to get up and go take a vacation and walk all over the place and not get winded. And so we were at Asheville, North Carolina this past summer.
Beautiful place.
Love Asheville. I would move there in a hot minute.
Yes.
And we went to the Biltmore.
Yes.
And,
I haven't been there in so long. I don't even remember going there as a kid. But
okay.
I definitely
it's
did.
Beautiful. But if you're going to take this tour, you're climbing 4 stories worth of stairs, up and down, back and forth, all over the place.
It was easy for you, wasn't it?
Right. No problem. But I'm watching
some of the people
these
you with?
older people. We didn't have anybody with us, but I'm watching some of the older people who had come to visit. And this one poor man was literally pulling himself up the stairwell to get to this one part of the tour. And I was like, that's why I work out.
Yep.
I don't want to be 60 years old and pulling myself up the stairs at the Biltmore. I just want to enjoy it.
Have you seen the memes? People have made memes where it's when you're in your younger parts of life, you have time and energy, but you don't have money, and then you get to the middle part of your life, and it's you have money and energy, but you don't have time.
Yes.
And then later parts in your life, you have money and time, but you don't have energy.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
I'm trying to redo that all right now. So okay, what can I do to have, money right now? And just, I don't know. I'm just trying to set myself up for the future as best as I can. And if the small thing that I do every day is work out or do something where I discipline myself or eat healthy or stuff like that, then I can do that.
Right.
I can do that now. And then everyone will go back in time and make one small change, but few people will make that change today. That has a huge impact on their future. So, I mean, finances is a huge part of that. Having money is a huge part of that. I mean, people like to think that money's not everything. I'm like, okay, but it is something.
It is something.
It is something because money is a tool, and how you use that tool depends upon how your life can go. How you live your life is depending upon how you use that tool.
Correct. So kind of going back to art, because I have been in the arts for so long, I have met artists who struggle every month to pay their bills. They're doing what they love, they don't have to clock in and out for the 9 to 5, but they're not paying their bills. And having worked at a nonprofit where I struggled to pay my bills for many, many years, I came to realize that I am actually more miserable working for something I love and not paying my bills than I am if I'm just working at this corporate job, but my bills are getting paid and I can do what I want in my free time.
Doing what you love but not being able to pay your bills makes you more miserable than doing what you love and not being able to, or being, I get what you're saying. I just said it wrong, but yeah.
I may not be the job I'm doing may not be the job I'm passionate about, but I can go home and do the job I'm passionate about because I've got the money to do that thing I'm passionate about.
Right. Exactly. That's a good thought. Yeah. And we're going back to art though. It's if you don't do if you weren't painting stuff that you were interested in, if I started painting, I would not be interested in it. I'm not, it's just not something I enjoy.
Right.
So with the podcast, if I do enjoy it, it's going to be easy for me to do it without making money. And one of the things I've thought about a lot was okay, it would be cool if I could get paid to do the podcast. That would be insane. It would not make sense, but I would never get paid to do a podcast if I never started one for free and no one paid me to do it.
So one of my friends, here's another quote. One of my friends, we were talking one day about, future plans and whatever. And he said, and and it just went right out of my mind, and it's so pertinent.
So annoying
all
when that
it
happens.
takes to be an overnight success is about 10 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And like at the time we had been talking about, because he's very much an entrepreneur type mindset, do your own business, don't work for the man kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am not that mindset. I'm like, I'm going to work for the man and then I'll do my thing on the side. And so we were talking about like, I don't think I will ever make any money as an artist. Like the chances of that are about as good as like someone becoming an NFL football player or, Britney Spears. Like those are rare success stories, right? So, but then it's like, I would love to be able to make a living off my art, and it's not going to happen if I don't do it.
I mean, like a lot of people want to win the lottery, but a lot of people don't play the ticket. I mean,
Exactly.
obviously, the lottery in and of itself, I don't think anyone should do. But
Right.
like,
But you see what I mean? It's like it kind of goes back to that famous quote: "Begin, the rest is easy." So it's like if you got to do it, and if it takes 10 years to be an overnight success, well, I may as well start now, so that 10 years from now I can be reaping those benefits.
one of the quotes that's going to be on one of these panels once I actually get to it is, "Luck is where opportunity meets preparation." Mm-hmm. And so essentially, like you would have never have wanted to come have a conversation with me had I not had a podcast where conversations are happening,
right?
And people knew about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just going to keep preparing, and one day an opportunity will come along.
Exactly.
And that's the same way with your art. It's just keep preparing, and an opportunity will come along, and then they're like, oh, well, Meredith just got lucky.
Right.
She got lucky that she sold this painting for X. I mean, like Banksy.
Right.
Everyone, that's the classic case of like money with painting and stuff.
Exactly.
That's a whole. What do you think about that?
I think like the one that shredded was fantastic.
When the person bought it. Oh.
But like that's the point. Like now you've got like, not only did you buy this Banksy, original, but now it's like truly a Banksy original. Like the destruction of it is actually what makes it truly a Banksy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
there's something super like, I think with Banksy, and the reason he's so like, I say the ominous Banksy person is so famous is because like there's this whole other layer of it that goes on top. Like if you just saw the artwork that Banksy made without having the whole backstory to it, it probably wouldn't be that insane. But that backstory that goes with it is amazing. And like how they're representing the art community is awesome too. I believe, because like they'll paint something and it's for everyone to see, and then it sucks that it ends up getting like destroyed or stuff happens to it, or people want to buy the wall that it's on or something like that. It becomes so exclusive,
right?
And that's the exclusivity of it, I think, is what makes them so worth their while.
Probably. So one of my favorite contemporary artists, I don't know if you've heard of him, his name is Kehinde Wiley. I may not be saying his first name correctly. But he was the official portrait painter for President Obama's portrait. They're
still doing portraits of the presidents?
They do, actually.
They don't just take pictures of them?
No.
They actually paint them?
Yeah. So
I had no idea.
Kehinde Wiley is a Black artist, and he actually lives in Senegal now, but I believe he's American. And he has made his career doing these huge scale portraits, traditionally painted oil portraits of Black people, brown people. He started in the United States, and he would be like, okay, so I want you to pose for my painting, wear whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you how to stand. And so he would put them in these very traditional portrait style of, like, say, Napoleon Bonaparte, with his hand in his jacket, or the warrior riding on horseback into the battle kind of thing. And he paints them in this very traditional style, and then he puts this very decorative background behind them, lots of flowers and vines and things like that, and they are gorgeous. Like, the first time I ever saw one of his pieces was at Miami Art Museum. The piece was like 8 feet tall by 6 feet wide, and it just stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, wow. Colton just pulled some of those up.
Yeah. So there's the one of President Obama.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool.
Artist.
Oh, and he ties the background into the...
Yes.
That is super cool.
So
Obama, people that are just listening, it's a portrait of Obama. He's got his arms crossed, elbows on his knees, and he's wearing a suit, no tie, and he's sitting on a Victorian wooden chair, but there's all these kind of vines behind it, and they're going around his legs and on the back of the chair and stuff, but he's still a very wow, the background makes the center of the piece stick out so much. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
He is just like, he's absolutely one of my favorite painters right now. There is no way I could afford one of his pieces. Like,
well, with that attitude,
no. Like
I think your entrepreneur friend would say if you stop working for corporations, maybe.
I think his prints are like 25 grand. Wow. So yeah.
Well, then you should get an original.
But the scale of his work is also kind of what will get you, like when you go into a gallery and you just see how huge they are.
Yeah.
There's one at the Museum of Fine Arts in St. Pete that's in their permanent collection if you're ever over there and poke in. And that one,
I've been told I was supposed to go to the Dali Museum there.
The Dali is very cool also.
Yeah.
So the Museum of Fine Arts and the Dali are right there on that same strip.
Yeah.
Maybe a mile from each other, maybe. You know, you could walk between one and the other if you wanted to.
Painting and stuff like that, when I see it, like what you're showing me, like that's awesome. But like going to like a museum and hoping that I find one there that I like is different. Like one of the things that I like so much about your paintings is the backgrounds that you do for them. Like the background that you do looks so like, it almost looks like shattered glass.
Right.
But it's like super, I don't even know. I don't even know how you do that. It's not just one solid color.
And that's where I was talking about the collage element still comes into play. Is I use those magazine photos, instead of using them for the photo themselves, it becomes about the texture of the photo or the color of the photo. And I cut it up and layer it out. And then I paint over it with the primary color I want it to be. So, so you get a little bit of the transparency of the texture of the image and not so much the image itself.
Super cool. I like that's super creative. I don't know. Listen, if you said you don't know if you'll ever make money from your art, but I'll totally, if you want to paint something, I will totally put it on one of these walls. Right? I will pay you for it. Whatever you tell me what you want, I'll pay you for something that would be super cool. I will tell everyone about it. Make it something crazy.
Oh, I've done murals before. So you know the swans in Lakeland, the fiberglass swans? I've done 2 of those.
What?
Yeah.
Those are super cool.
Yeah. They were a lot of fun. They're a lot of work, though.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I for a while there, I guess when I was working at the museum, somehow, I don't remember, but my name and phone number is on file with the city of Lakeland. And whenever people call and ask about getting their swan redone, my name is given out, which is fine, you know. But then what generally happens, and I might get 1 call a year, maybe. What generally happens is I send them a quote for what this is going to cost. And they go, oh no. Because, again, you know, knowing your value, I feel like I am at minimum skilled labor, right? So if, let's say, a plumber makes $20 an hour, and I'm sure they probably make a little more than that now.
Right.
And they've spent all these years learning their trade and building their skill to deserve this money. What have I been doing for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Why am I not worth $20 an hour or more for what I'm doing? So when I send the quote, I know one of those swans, if you want it completely stripped down and repainted, is going to take 100 hours. All right. So that's, if I'm going to say $20 an hour, that was $2,000. And you're also going to pay for my supplies because that's not coming out of
right. You know? Right. You're not a charity at that point. Right. You know what I mean? You're not just going to do this for free. Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
So usually people get that invoice and they're like, I thought it was going to be like a couple $100. No. No, nope, for a couple $100, you might get a few touch-ups.
Yeah.
And I can't guarantee how long that's going to last.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how I view. I do agree with you. If it's going to take you 100 hours to do something, like one of the things I was getting into before I decided I didn't want to do it was woodworking. Like when I made this table and stuff like that, and how long it takes. Granted, I know I wasn't very experienced, but like, it's one of those things. If I loved it, I would continue doing it. But like behind Colton's chair, there's like some scrap pieces of wood that I'm supposed to make something out of, and it's been sitting there for like 10 months. Like I just. It's like, that's why these wood panel things aren't done, is because I'm making them. And if I bought them, it would be done, a lot sooner. But just taking the time to do it, it takes time. And, I don't blame people for wanting money for what they do. I mean, it's how businesses work.
Exactly.
Like Colton's girlfriend, Kelly, she makes cake balls. They are the bomb.
Right.
But like I've told her, like if she's going to make a pricing model, like include how much money you think you should make an hour. Right. And then divide that by, however many you're going to make, and like make a really accurate pricing model. And art. I don't see why you wouldn't do that either.
And so I know that like with these, so I kind of came up with a standardized pricing scale for my pieces just based on their size, just for consistency and for my ease of mind. So like the 16 by 20s, I'm listing for $150, right? If I really did the math on how much time it takes me, I'm totally underpricing them, right? But I also kind of am like, my bills are getting paid by this other job over here, so selling one of these is kind of nice.
Yeah, right, right. Are these all for sale? Or are these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I
hope you can sell one of them.
All of my work is for sale, and I actually recently got some prints made because if you go to the art festivals, a lot of the artists, they'll have their original piece, which is the expensive price, but then if you want like an 8x10 print, it's like $20-$30. So I'm gonna do that. I just got some of those because I'm gonna be in Art Crawl on November 6th. Art Crawl is a downtown art festival in Lakeland, Florida. They do it in Munn Park, and it's for emerging artists specifically. And the point of the festival is they want to not only showcase emerging artists, but also make it so that art is affordable for the people who attend. So as an artist in the festival, the majority of your work has to be under $350. So like, that's where I've really started paying attention to, like, if I want, not everybody's going to come in and be like, I value this enough to spend $200 on this painting, but they might be like, oh, this is super cool. $20 for a print. Yeah.
Right. So what day is that?
That is November 6th. It's a Saturday.
I might have to do that. What time? What's the time frame?
It's from like 9 to 4, I think.
Yeah, I might have to swing by. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
That'd be super cool to go to that.
They have a lot of interesting artists. It's run by the same. So Ellen Chastain and Chad Chastain. I met both of them. Ellen still works at the museum, and I met them when I was working there at Polk Museum of Art. I should say which museum. Yeah.
But worked at a lot of museums. Yeah, I got to hear about that.
No, I only worked at the one, but yeah. But they started Art Crawl as part of a program at the Polk Museum of Art, and the museum decided they didn't want to continue it. So Ellen made a nonprofit, and now they do these festivals every year. Of course, last year got canceled, but they do Art Crawl once a year, and they also do 2 punk flea markets a year. And the last punk...
That's your crowd.
The last punk flea market was... I guess early October. No, yeah, probably early October. And they do that one at Lakeland Brewing. And that's just another time to go, like, enjoy just some weird stuff. Like if you just want
I love it. I love the weird shit.
Right?
I love it. Why not?
I'm not like the punk scene.
Weird shit is weird before it becomes mainstream.
Right.
All the mainstream shit was weird at one point.
Like the punk scene isn't even my thing, but it's kind of a fun event. I totally enjoy myself.
Right. See, that's the beauty of life. I just love all the differences.
Yeah.
I love. That's why I like having different people on. That's why I like having guests as a format of the podcast, because I love the different kinds of life. I could talk to somebody who I'm not interested in fantasy football like at all, but when I had the guy on yesterday and we were talking about it, like I'm super interested in learning about it, and like learning like his thought process with it and what he's learning, and like it's super like art. Like I'm not gonna lie, I don't look at art hardly at all.
Right.
But when I see something, sometimes it catches my eye, and I'm like, what? Like when I saw like your paintings and stuff like this, like those are super freaking cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you do. You've been doing it. Overnight success, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Right.
Hopefully soon, because the 10 years you've got it. So you have one more painting sitting there. Can we see it?
Yeah. So
this is a little guy.
This is a little one, and this is something I just started in the last like month or two. I found these acrylic markers at Blick Art Supply over in Tampa. Yeah. So they're markers, but they're filled with acrylic paint. And you can, when they're still wet on the canvas, you can blend it around with water or whatever. And but I like them because they're like a combination of drawing and painting. And, drawing is where I started. So I love
that, like, it's not like brush strokes. Like
right.
You said, you can see upon getting closer to it that it's like marker streaks.
Right.
That's super cool.
Right. And that's what I kind of love about it. And I can also like bang out a drawing in like less than an hour because I'm just messing around and having fun with it. And if I hate it, I just paint over it and I start again. Well,
so how come you don't do drawing instead of painting if you like drawing so much? Maybe it's quicker. I don't know. I'm just curious.
I'm not real sure why I started painting on them. Probably just to bring more color into it.
Do you draw them first?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So like I use the grid system when I'm doing portraits particularly. So when I did that one of Christy, I gridded out the canvas and I made a copy of her photo, and I made the same grid on the photo. So it's like, if maybe the photo, the squares were 1/4 of an inch on the canvas, they're an inch, and then I can scale it up that way. And that also ensures that the proportions stay correct. So like one of the things that a lot of amateur artists, learning artists do when it comes to portraits is they don't pay that close attention to the proportions. Like they'll just kind of like let their hand do the thing. That takes a lot of time and skill, right?
To get really good. Point. Yeah, like freehanding it all.
Yeah. I can when I want to, but if I really want it to be accurate, I go back to a grid.
Yeah, you don't want the nose on one side to be a little more. Yeah.
So to give an example of this, I have one that I haven't even started painting yet that I gridded out like a month ago. But as I was looking at the grid to get her face proportions correct, I realized that the distance between the bottom of her eye and the top of her nose was only 1 square. If I had been freelancing that, I would have made her nose too long, because that just like doesn't seem right in your head.
Oh man, that would have sucked if you got a little bit further too and you realized it had you been freehanding it. Yeah.
Right.
That I remember when in art class, in like middle school and stuff like that like you try and freehand faces or stuff like that, and it was it's challenging. Very challenging.
Another thing that I've noticed that a lot of amateur artists do with portraits particularly is they put too much lines, too much line work around the eyes. They really do this weird like definition of the eyes, so that it's almost like everyone's wearing eyeliner. Let me put it that way, right?
Yeah. Like it's too thick of lines, too much shadowing.
And then they don't give any sort of shaping to the eyes. So like if you look at someone's face, there's shadows. Everybody has a shadow under their eyes. Everybody has shadows like right around here. There's usually a highlight right around here somewhere. But a lot of times what I see beginning artists do is that's just one skin tone with these outlines for eyes.
Yeah, so it becomes too prominent.
Right. So it's like those little things that especially as I've refined my skill over the years, now when I look at newer artists, emerging artists who are trying to do this work, I can see the mistake they're making. And in a weird way, that also makes me go back and look at my work and be like, am I still making that mistake? How can I be better? So I think the painting for me, kind of going back to your original question, the painting for me was because I never really learned how to paint. My my art degree was in sculpture. So
really,
yeah,
man.
So
how did you choose sculpting as a degree field?
Oh my God, that's
when you went to college, was it one of those things where you were thinking, okay, how am I going to get a job from this, or was just you wanted?
I just wanted to do it. Yeah.
I
think so. Sculpture was because I actually wanted to be a fashion designer when I was younger. I mean, please, what young woman doesn't want to be a fashion designer?
Right.
I mean, really, let's just be honest.
Right.
I had actually applied to go to, there are some major schools in New York City that have fashion design degrees that a lot of the big designers come out of. And I was accepted to them. But my parents looked at that bill and went,
Yeah, you done messed up. Yeah.
They were like, there's no way. They wanted my parents to contribute an extraordinary amount of money because living in New York City, plus the tuition for these private schools.
State schools too, that drives it up by like at least 3 times.
Yeah. So I will shout out to my parents for preventing me from making that mistake, that financial mistake.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I figured was, all right, well, I'll get my degree at USF because I have the Florida Bright Future Scholars that ends up being a free degree. And I'll just do sculpture because it's close to fashion, right? Like it's a 3-dimensional art form. Okay. Yeah, that's why I ended up in a sculpture degree. But funny enough, as I was working on my sculpture degree, discovered I enjoy wood carving and I'm pretty good at it. I have not done any since college.
What? Meredith, I hope that you are paying attention to what you're talking about today. You're great at drawing, but you don't do much of it. You do more painting.
I've been doing, but I'm teaching. I'm learning.
Right.
The painting
Well,
is
the
a
important part is
activity right now.
Okay, I would say that's important. Is that you want to do those things.
Yes. I want to paint, and Anyway, so going back to the sculpture and the wood carving, one of the reasons I stopped doing sculpture after school is because it's an expensive art form. You know,
chisels, all the tools.
As you know from woodworking, wood's not cheap.
No,
right?
no. Well, and if you're learning to woodwork, you have to want to do it. The most my problem and the reason that I ended up just drifting away from it is I learned I like building things. I don't like finishing pieces. I don't like sanding. I don't like making sure, like putting a stain on it, and then after the stain gets on it, like deciding if I like that color, and then do more. I like the structural building of it. You put this piece and this piece together. Like I built this table, but
nice.
what it was when you go to like the sanding and the putting a finish on it, and then it was just such a pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I can't imagine doing this.
So that was my thing with wood carving. I had a professor who, again, these professors with conceptual art knowledge, her whole thing was the process, right? There are some artists out there that like the joy of the whole creation is the process of the creation. That is not my joy. My joy is the finished product, right? And she was always trying to get me to do these carvings with chisels and a hammer, and I couldn't stand it. Like it was just way too slow. I wanted to see progress. I carved with a Dremel and air grinders. That was my thing. Like I would sit out on the back patio of the wood shop at USF with the air grinder in one hand and just sawdust flying everywhere. I had my big respirator mask on. And when I would get done, I would have to like take the air blower tool and
yep.
blow myself off because it was such a mess at that point. But like I wanted to get done.
Yes. Yeah. Like, the chisels. Oh, it'd take forever. Like that's one of the things I started watching. Interesting enough, his name is John Malecki on YouTube. And he is he does like fine wood furniture and stuff like that. And I was just, but he's first of all incredible content creator.
Right.
Like his videos are super like engaging, and like he puts like music, and like they do like slow mo. Like they're really good at creating videos, and he's really good at making wood furniture. But he would like make like joints, like wood joints, and he would like take a chisel and like smack like, and I was like, I do not have the patience for that. Like
same.
When it came to wood furniture, I liked the finished piece. I didn't like creating the finished piece.
Right.
And the creating was so unbearable to me that it's like the podcast. Like if the podcast would become something, that's like mainstream or anything like that, that would be super cool too. But like, I don't care. I care less about the finished product of the podcast and more like I enjoy the creation of getting people here and talking to them.
Right.
Yeah. It's difficult though.
It is. Difficult. So that actually kind of made me think of something else about. And then it went right out of my head.
Isn't that crazy how the brain works? Isn't it crazy? I hate when that happens.
Like you're in the middle of a thought and then it's just like, woo!
That's the problem with conversations is like, because you'll probably listen back to the podcast, and when you listen back to it, you're going to remember what it is that you forgot.
Right? And you're like, dadgummit.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to talk about.
Because you never want to cut the other person off. You always want to like I want to let you get your full thought out, but I'll have thought of something like in between you, like halfway saying what you're saying. I'm like, I got to remember that. And then at the end of your conversation, I'm like,
I forgot what that was. Yes.
Yep. The art of conversation. See, I like all forms of art. I like all forms. The thing that I'm least into art wise, besides like painting and stuff like that, but like music. I don't listen. And it's
I don't
crazy.
listen to a lot of music either.
It was crazy because I grew up like I wanted to play guitar. My actually the intro and the exit of the podcast, the background music that is my uncle playing guitar, and I was like obsessed with that. And like I loved listening to music and stuff like this. When I was a kid, Guitar Hero was a huge thing, and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. And like occasionally I can sit there and like listen to music for a long period of time, and I love like Bohemian Rhapsody, like just musical, just craziness. But like on a normal basis, I probably haven't listened to. I listened to a song yesterday, but it's been a while since I listened to music.
Oh, I'm the same way. Like we listen to music when we're working out because I've realized that it's really hard to count reps and listen to a podcast at the same time.
100% agree with you. Cardio,
however,
podcasts and cardio, that's the move.
And books. I have an Audible subscription. I go for a run and like 30 minutes have passed and I'm like, I'm done already?
Yep. That's part of the reason I wanted to add video to the podcast so much is like if I'm on like a stair stepper at the gym or like some kind of like stationary bike, like being able to watch the podcast too is just, you're able to just like, okay, I'm in this conversation now. I'm not on a stair stepper right now dying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Same thing. And so that's what I was going to talk about, is about the process of art and listening to things. So I came to realize very quickly that there's 2 stages to the art process. In the first stage, where I'm coming up with a concept and making decisions about the placement of the composition, which colors I'm going to use, which magazine photos are going to be the background for this, and how is this all going to come together, I have to be focused. Like, there's no music, there's no there's nothing. It's silence. It's me standing at my workstation doing my little thing. But when I get to the painting part, where I'm not really making those conscious decisions anymore, that's when I can go through a book in a weekend. Like, just put my earbud in and sit there and paint. And it works out beautifully because my fiance is an engineering student, so he spends his whole weekend studying, math and physics and all that stuff. And I'm over there in my little studio area with my podcast on, and just total. If you were standing in the house, it's total silence.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We don't have internet or TV here. I say we have TVs, but we don't have cable.
Right.
And so, like, we get most of our entertainment from our phones because we have unlimited data.
Right.
And like, I'll watch podcasts on my phone or listen to podcasts, and same kind of thing. You could walk in this house and because of earbuds, it could be dead silent in this house at all times.
Right.
Like, you just one of the reasons we bought the little bunny ear things, so you can get like just local channels, is one, if there's a storm, you can still I guess, I don't know, you can still get the news, like if the cable goes out. And then the other thing is it puts on noise for the dog.
Yeah.
So the dog doesn't feel like they're alone.
Right.
They're going to leave the house, we'll turn the TV on for the dog. That's essentially it.
Like, one of the things about cats is they don't care.
Cats are little. I do not like cats. We can argue about something now, Meredith. I do not like cats. They're great. I view cats like you view children.
Okay.
Like, they're great when they're someone else's.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's how I am with cats.
And that's kind of how I am with dogs.
Yeah.
Like, just for me with dogs, they tend to the licking. I can't do
Lola,
licking.
did you notice that Lola didn't lick you?
No, she did not. Thank goodness.
She does not lick.
Okay.
Unless you're covered in peanut butter, she will not lick you.
But most dogs, that's like their go-to. They will.
I do not like that.
And like, so I told you, my dad has a bull mastiff. That dog always has spit coming out.
Oh, it's the grossest.
Mouth,
I have a friend who his parents have bloodhounds, and like, you'll get out of your vehicle at their house, and they'll shake their heads, and like a beam of goo will fall on you, and I'm like, people pay money for that.
When I go to my parents' house, I always wear a pair of jeans that I know I need to wash, because Charlie's going to like rub against me at some point. So that's really my and dogs, especially if people don't bathe them frequently, they can get really stinky.
Yeah, you can walk into some people, you'll walk into their house and you're like
dog.
They have dogs, and that's the last thing I want in my. I want you to walk in and be like, oh, you have a dog.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah. But cats don't have that problem. Cats
can have that problem though. People don't, like, you can walk into a house and be like,
well,
they have
that
cats.
litter box, you gotta be careful about. But I mean, the cat itself doesn't usually get terribly stinky.
Yeah, you don't have to ever bathe cats.
No. My fiance, when he first moved in with me, he was like, "You have not ever bathed those cats," and I'm like, "Why?"
They take care of themselves.
They don't go outside. So
when's the last time he washed the lawn?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, you just don't have to do that.
and then I was like, and B, have you ever tried to bathe the cat?
No, I'm good. No,
that is so.
The claws is why I don't like cats.
Well, I people will disagree with me on this decision, but I have declawed my cats.
Yeah, well, it's a weird thing. It's a weird.
Which is why they don't go outside. They're strictly indoor cats. Now they still have their back claws, scratch their ears and stuff like that. But front claws, no. And I get it. It's like an amputation, right? But I also like my furniture and my skin.
Well, so I grew up with a dog and a cat, and the cat was like my brother's cat, and the cat, like, in her older age, she was like very, like, falling apart pretty much, and she would like get in your lap, and which is great, but if she felt like she was moving at all, she would just start to dig her claws into you. Just sitting there digging her claws into you, and like, she would like claw the furniture or claw the rugs or anything like that to, like, it feels good for them, and I don't blame them for doing that.
No.
But I don't want it on my furniture.
No,
that's why I just don't like that. There's too many things with cats, and the hair makes me sneeze.
That's one thing. We joke about the cat hair tumbleweeds in our house because we don't have any carpet in the house. And I have
carpet.
to.
I would not have carpet if it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to sweep regularly because when I do, I can put a whole cat together from what I sweep up. You know?
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, dogs are the same way though. If you don't have like a hypoallergenic dog, you can build another dog.
Yeah.
You can build another dog out of like just the amount of hair they shed.
It's
Lola's
true.
like that. If
It's
we didn't keep
true.
up with it.
But like, so I think you and I have talked about this before. So my house was built in 1958, and the whole house is terrazzo. Like,
I don't know what that means.
so terrazzo is like a poured concrete that is okay. Again, talking about Publix because that's the primary shopping grocery store in our area. You know how you go in Publix and there's like that polished concrete floor that has like the little specks of different colors in it?
So yours is like that.
That's terrazzo.
Okay.
So it was real big in the 50s, pre-air conditioning, because it will help you keep your house really cool.
Because it's touching the ground. It's not like a separate layer of flooring.
It's a heat sink, you know, to use the term my engineering student fiance would say. So it really does pull the heat out of the air and into the ground. And they were fairly common, like I said, in the 50s. And so my house was built in 1958. And of course, at some point, the terrazzo went out of style and somebody carpeted it. And I have these little carpet pinholes all around the edges of the room.
It's a shame.
The borders of doors and stuff like that. It's a huge shame. But
because carpet was a big thing, but I feel like people are getting away from carpet now.
Yes.
I hate it.
But I promise you, one of the reasons I bought that house was those floors. Like, I walked in and I was like, this is fabulous. Like,
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm not a huge fan of carpet. Ever since when I was a kid and we pulled the carpet up at my parents' house, and I just remember
all the grossness underneath.
There was just we kept really good care of it. Like did the wet vacuum thingy and like constant taking care of it, vacuuming and everything like that. And there was still like an inch of sand underneath it that just had accumulated. That it went through like the padding and everything. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I really my plan is once I buy a house, if it has carpet, get gone, and then I want one of those little Roomba things. So just constantly, you just have to dump those.
Want one of those.
My cousin had one, and we stayed at her house once, and it was just fantastic. It's just like empty it every night, and you're good. And she had dogs, and you couldn't tell because it was constantly sweeping up dog hair.
Yep.
And that's the move.
Yes.
That's the move. Less involved, but they were expensive when they first came out. They used to be like $1,000, and now they're like. Now there's competition. Now they're a lot cheaper.
Right. Yeah. So,
So what are you working on now? What's the? You said you got some stuff in the mix. Do you start one painting and then go to do you start a bunch of them and then finish them occasionally, or is it one of the things you start one and you finish one?
I usually start a bunch at once. Like if I'm going to be gridding things out, I'll do 4 or 5 canvases, and when I'm adding the collage elements, I'll do all that at once, and then I slowly go through the painting process. But usually once I start the painting, it's like I finish one at a time. But like right now, I have one that I need to finish, the big cat goddess that I was telling you about that I need to finish, and I've got a second one that I haven't even started the painting part, and I've got another idea in my head that hasn't even it's still just a blank canvas. Like I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So you just have an idea. You have a bunch of ideas started.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's just a matter of getting to it. And the last few weeks have been like I've got other things I've got to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I hope that you could one day do it full time. That would be super, super cool. Potentially, like the whole reason I started the podcast, and I've said it before, is just if I retired, what would I do? Because too many people just retire and have no plans for what they're going to do when they retire, or they just go, I'm going to travel. It's like, okay, are you going to travel 365 days a year?
Right.
I don't think so.
What else you can do with yourself?
Exactly.
I don't understand that. Just like I don't understand people who don't have a hobby outside work. Right?
Or their hobby is something that's done occasionally.
Right.
Like they have no discipline, a discipline that they practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So people who work all the time just floor me because I'm like, don't you have something else to do? Like, how do you not have something?
How do you like what you're doing with your life if you're working all the time?
Right.
Because I would be like clawing my face apart if I worked all the time.
And I know that's probably like a totally different like I'm sure the people who are those kind of workaholics look at people like us like, well, how do you like have all this leisure time? Like, I don't get it. What,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know?
How do you get things done? It's like,
Right.
this is getting things done.
This is getting things done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but flip side of that, if I was doing art full time, I probably would work 7 days a week, you know,
Right.
because it would no longer be work at that point.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Well, I mean, the idea is that one day maybe this podcast could provide to where it could be a full-time job. I mean, if your art was selling like crazy, you know, that if you're preparing, one day that opportunity might be there, and next thing you know, like that could be your full-time job.
Right.
That would
Or
be
like-
insane.
or
it's,
like-
it's in like I tell him all the time. I'm like imagine we could do the podcast full-time.
Yeah.
That seems like it's fake, but people do it.
But it could even be like, maybe you're not even working on the podcast 40 hours a week. Maybe you spend like, 4 weeks and you do enough podcasts for the next 6 months. You know?
Right. Yeah. It gives you the freedom. And I think that's the beautiful part about like the country we live in. It is like, there's 1,000 million different ways to live. You know what I mean? And like, there's some people that's what they do. They have podcasts and that's what they do for income.
Right.
And like, I'm like, that's crazy.
Right.
The idea that someone like does what I love to do and they do it for like, some people make a ton of money doing it. And I'm like that would be the most insane gig to ever have. But I will never have something like that if I was never to do it for free and start.
Right.
Like I think what I started to say earlier, and I don't know if I said it or not, was I look at like people like I don't know if you know who Dave Ramsey is, but Dave Ramsey with his radio show, and then Joe Rogan with his podcast, or like Warren Buffett, like they're all doing things that they love, and they like Bill Gates, he didn't code because he thought he was going to make a bunch of money.
Right.
He just loved to code. And he was able, like, money became a byproduct. The business became a byproduct of doing what he loved to do. And so, like, I love to talk, love to have conversations. And if I was able to create a big podcast because of that, and be able to support myself financially and continue doing that, that would just be so insane. And I would assume you'd feel the same way about art.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah, it'd be crazy. I'd love it.
Yeah.
I am open to it, universe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and karma's a mirror. You ever heard that phrase before? So I'm like, okay, if I just put out good podcasts, I like good podcasts. Hopefully that people will find it, and we'll see. We'll see. But is there anything else you want to talk about before we start wrapping up?
I can't think of anything. I'm sure like I'll get in my car and be halfway home and be like, Dad.
Well, we'll have to do this again. We'll have to do this again. You're going to paint more things, or you'll have to come on and talk again?
I'm definitely going to paint more. There's so much in my head. That is one thing that I have realized in the last few years. So I mentioned that I did graphic design for like 15 years. And during that time, I never made any art. And I felt like by the time I left work, all the visual creativity was spent. Like, I didn't want to sit in front of a computer. I didn't want to paint. I didn't want to draw. I was done.
Yeah.
Right. But this job that I have now is more about writing and, managing projects, things like that. So I have all this visual energy,
pent up energy,
ready to go when the weekend hits. It's like I'm counting down till Friday.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get that. Yeah. I mean, same thing with the podcast. Like, I don't know, maybe the reason I enjoy, I mean, I've always talked. So like, I don't even want to think about it, but I've always wanted to talk. So I don't. Yeah, who knows? But no, for sure. Anytime you want to do another podcast, let me know.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna show the paintings one more time.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there like a specific way to handle them?
No, I mean, if I was working,
hold two of them up, and I'll hold two of them up. For sale.
Like, if I was still working at the museum, I'd be like, we need our white gloves and we have to hold them on the sides. But
I got the sides thing.
Right.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Somebody buy these things.
Yeah.
Buy them. But, all right. Anything else you want to talk about, Meredith?
I don't think so. You can find me on Instagram at mpopeart.
Yeah.
So
follow. There's a lot of stuff that's not these that are on there.
Yeah.
So check it out. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
No, I had fun. Thanks for having me over.
Thank you. I got to pee so bad. Bye,
right? You and me both.
Hello, everybody. This episode is over, but if you would like to support the podcast, you can head on over to the Instagram account to Somehow We're Adults and use the link in the bio to donate to the PayPal account there. All of the money that is donated will be used to make the podcast better. But either way, I'll keep it going. Make sure to follow the podcast where you listen to it for future episodes of Somehow We're Adults. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.